A coat of white paint on a 1,000 square foot roof produces 10 kilowatts of continuous cooling power. That is more than the central air conditioning unit running inside most American homes right now. No compressor, no refrigerant, no wiring, no electricity bill, just paint. In 2021, a mechanical engineering lab at Purdue University created a formulation so white that Guinness certified it as a world record. It reflects 98.1% of all incoming sunlight. But it does something no ordinary white paint has ever done. It does not just bounce heat away, it actively pushes heat off the surface and radiates it through the atmosphere into deep space. The surface it coats does not just stay cooler than a dark roof. It drops below the temperature of the surrounding air in direct sunlight, measured, published, and peer-reviewed. You would think that kind of breakthrough would change an industry overnight. It did not. And the reason it did not has nothing to do with the science. The idea behind this is so old it predates written language. Every Mediterranean civilization figured it out independently. The Greeks, the Romans, the Moors, and the Andalusians. Across the Cycladic Islands, residents have been lime-washing their buildings white since the Byzantine era. Santorini, Mykonos, Paros. Those white walls are not decoration. They are cooling systems. The lime reflects sunlight. The thick stone walls stay cool, and interior temperatures hold around 72 degrees Fahrenheit through summers that push well past 95 degrees Fahrenheit outside. No electricity, no moving parts, just crushed limestone mixed with water and painted on every spring. Ostuni in southern Italy, the white hill towns of Andalusia, the Medinas of Morocco. Thousands of miles apart, thousands of years of practice, all converging on the same answer. White surfaces keep buildings cool. The same coat that kept a Greek grandmother comfortable in 1850 works exactly the same way in 2026. And when researchers finally tested this with modern instruments, the numbers matched what tradition promised. In 2011, white test plots on the roof of the Museum of Modern Art in Queens, New York, were measured at 40 degrees cooler than identical plots painted black. 40 degrees. Same roof, same sun, same afternoon. The only variable was color. What changed is that in 1902, Willis Carrier invented mechanical air conditioning. And from that point forward, the answer to heat was no longer a material. It was a machine that could be manufactured, installed, serviced, and billed monthly. Lime wash could not do any of those things. You buy it once for a few dollars, mix it with water, and paint it on. No technician, no warranty plan, no monthly utility draw. It is the kind of solution that makes perfect sense if you are trying to stay cool, and no sense at all if you are trying to build a business around keeping people cool. But tradition is not proof, and it took a researcher with 30 years of patience and a wall full of sensors to turn what Mediterranean grandmothers already knew into numbers the building industry could not ignore. In the early 1990s, a physicist named Hashem Akbari at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in California began doing something nobody in the building industry had done at scale. He started measuring what happened when you took a dark roof and made it white, not modeling it, not estimating it from energy bills. He used thermocouples on the roof surface, temperature probes in the attic, submeters on the air conditioning compressor, and data loggers recording every 15 minutes, month after month in real occupied homes and real commercial buildings across Sacramento, San Jose, Davis, Gilroy, and multiple sites in Florida. The numbers were not subtle. A home in Sacramento, coated with a high albedo white surface, saw an 80% reduction in daily air conditioning electricity use. Not a typo. 80%. A school building in Florida recorded a 25 to 35% drop in cooling energy. 3 commercial buildings across Central California showed 17 to 39% reductions. The Florida Solar Energy Center replicated the residential findings across 9 occupied homes and found significant cooling reductions at every single site. All published, all peer-reviewed, all sitting in the Lawrence Berkeley archives and the Department of Energy database where anyone can download them today. Akbari spent the next 3 decades building the most comprehensive evidence base in the history of building energy research for what he called cool roofs. Hundreds of monitored buildings, DOE energy simulations calibrated against real-world field data across 11 major U.S. metropolitan areas. His work helped push reflective roof requirements into California's Title 24 Energy Code in the early 2000s, and eventually into ASHRAE Standard 90.1, the national benchmark for commercial building energy performance. But those standards took decades to pass. They still only apply in limited contexts, and they still do not require the thing that would make the biggest difference: a white surface on every residential roof in a cooling dominant climate. The data was never in question. The adoption was, and you do not need a national laboratory to see it work. A homeowner named David Mundy documented the whole thing on builditsolar.com. He had a 1,300 square ft dark shingled roof. Instead of buying $600 worth of elastomeric coating, he bought 2 bags of hydrated lime from the concrete aisle of his hardware store for $14 on total. He mixed it with water and rolled it onto his roof in an afternoon. Before the coating, his attic hit a 140 degrees EF on a summer day. After, it dropped to 100 degrees, a 40-degree reduction in attic temperature, for $14 in one afternoon. His air conditioning barely cycled all summer. He kept the coating on for 2 years, maintained it with nothing, and only removed it because his roof needed replacing for unrelated reasons. He published the temperature data, the process, and the cost breakdown. It is still freely available online for anyone who wants to verify it. Now, here is the part most people never hear about. It is the difference between an ordinary white roof and what the Purdue lab created. A standard white roof reflects sunlight. That is useful. A dark roof might absorb 90 to 95% of incoming solar energy and reach surface temperatures of 150 to 170 degree F on a summer afternoon. A good commercial white coating reflects 80 to 90% of that energy, and the surface temperature drops significantly. That alone can cut your cooling costs by 20 to 40%. That technology exists right now at any hardware store for roughly $60 to $100 a bucket. But there is a ceiling to what reflection alone can do. Even the best reflective white surface still absorbs some heat. It warms up. It just warms up less. The surface temperature stays above the ambient air temperature. It is cooler than a dark roof by a wide margin, but it is still warm. What Purdue's lab figured out breaks through that ceiling entirely. Their paint uses barium sulfate nanoparticles at a 60% concentration in a carefully calibrated range of particle sizes. Each particle size scatters a different wavelength of sunlight. A wider range of sizes means a wider range of the solar spectrum is reflected. That yields 98.1% solar reflectance, which is extraordinary on its own. But the real breakthrough is what happens in the infrared. The paint does not just reflect incoming energy. It emits thermal energy as infrared radiation in a specific frequency band right around 8 to 13 micrometers, where the Earth's atmosphere is transparent. Engineers call this the atmospheric window. Energy radiated at those frequencies passes straight through the air, through the clouds, and exits into the cold of outer space, which sits at roughly minus 270 degrees C. The paint is essentially pumping heat off your roof and sending it out of the atmosphere entirely. This is a direct path to outer space. Most white paint is like a mirror. It bounces the sun's energy back. Purdue's paint is both a mirror and a radiator. It reflects sunlight and actively pushes stored heat out through a gap in the atmosphere that almost nothing else on your roof can access. Think of it as both reflective and radiative. The result is a surface that cools below the surrounding air temperature. Not just less hot, actually cold. Purdue's field test recorded the painted surface sitting more than 4.5 degrees C below ambient air temperature during the daytime. At night, that gap widened to more than 10 degrees C. The surface was actually cold. Professor Julien Rouen's lab spent 6 years on this. They evaluated over 100 candidate materials, narrowed the list to 10, and tested roughly 50 formulations for each. The results were published in ACS Applied Materials and Interfaces, one of the most cited journals in material science. Guinness World Records certified it. The research was funded in part by the Air Force Office of Scientific Research and performed at Purdue's Herrick Laboratories. And then the coverage cycle played out exactly the way it always does with this kind of research. CNN ran a story. The Smithsonian wrote it up. Every major science outlet in the world covered it, and then nothing changed. Let me show you why. The global air conditioning industry is not small. According to the International Energy Agency, Cooling already accounts for roughly 10% of all global electricity consumption. About 20% of all electricity used in buildings worldwide goes to air conditioning and fans. The agency projects that by 2050, the global stock of air conditioners will grow from roughly 2 billion to 5.6 billion units. That is 10 new air conditioners sold every second for the next 25 years. The energy demand from cooling alone is expected to triple. That is not a market that reorganizes itself around a coat of paint. Then there is the layer most homeowners never think about: homeowner association rules. Across dozens of states in the U.S., HOA covenants explicitly restrict roof and exterior colors to earth tones, browns, grays, dark greens, muted reds. Those are the colors that look traditional and uniform. They also happen to be the colors that absorb the most solar energy and guarantee that your air conditioning runs all summer. A white or highly reflective roof is often a violation. This is written into HOA rulebooks. You can look it up for your own community. Your neighborhood aesthetic code may be quietly requiring you to maximize heat absorption on the largest sun-facing surface of your home, and then pay to remove that heat with a machine every month for the rest of your life. Nobody sat in a room and decided to suppress radiative cooling paint. That is not how it works. The air conditioning industry sells equipment that requires electricity. The paint industry sells products designed to be replaced. The building code system was designed around both. The HOA system enforces colors that maximize heat absorption, and a surface that cools itself for free does not fit the revenue model of anyone in that chain. The incentives just do not align. They never needed to. But here is what does exist right now today, without waiting for the Purdue formulation to reach store shelves. High reflectance white elastomeric roof coatings are available at any major hardware store. A 5-gallon bucket costs roughly $60 to $120 depending on the brand and rated lifespan. It covers about 250 square FT per gallon with a proper 2-coat application. For an average size flat roof, you are looking at $250 to $500 of materials and a weekend of work with a roller. These coatings reflect 80 to 90% of incoming solar radiation. They are not the 98.1% of the Purdue formulation. They do not achieve subambient cooling, but the measured data from 3 decades of Lawrence Berkeley research show they reduce cooling energy by 20 to 40% in most climates. On a home spending $2,000 a year on cooling, that is $400 to $800 back in your pocket every summer. The coating pays for itself in the first season. Compare that to a new central air conditioning system, $5,000 to $15,000 installed. Annual electricity cost of $500 to $2,000 depending on your climate and usage. A 15-year lifespan before you do it all over again. And every kilowatt hour it consumes generates emissions that make the problem it is solving incrementally worse. A coat of white paint on your roof does not eliminate the need for air conditioning in most climates. That is not the claim. The claim, backed by 30 years of measured field data, is that it does a meaningful share of the same work for a fraction of the cost with zero ongoing energy input. And the advanced formulation that could push that share dramatically higher already exists in a lab in West Lafayette, Indiana. It just has not been allowed to reach you yet. Purdue's team has filed patents through the Purdue Research Foundation and partnered with a company to scale production. They estimated that coating just 0.5% to 1% of the Earth's surface with this paint could offset the warming effect of all carbon dioxide emitted to date. That number was published in their paper. It is not speculation. It is a calculation based on the measured radiative output per square meter. Press your hand against a dark roof at 2 in the afternoon in July. You pull it back. That surface is running 150 degree F or higher. That heat is migrating through your roof decking, into your attic, through your ceiling insulation, and into every room below it. Your air conditioner is running a marathon against it all day long and losing slowly, degree by degree, while the electric meter spins. Now picture the same roof coated white. Not a special coating, not the Purdue formula, just a standard white elastomeric from the hardware store. The surface temperature drops 50 to 60 degree F. Your attic goes from an oven to something manageable. Your air conditioner cycles less. Your compressor lives longer. Your bill drops. You feel the difference the first afternoon. Now picture the Purdue version, The one that does not just stay cooler than a dark roof, but drops below the temperature of the air around it. A surface that is cold to the touch while the sun is directly overhead. You point an infrared camera at it, and the painted panel glows dark while everything around it glows bright. It is not just reflecting energy away, it is radiating heat off the surface through the atmospheric window and out of the atmosphere entirely. The roof is not passively resisting heat, it is actively rejecting it. 1,000 square ft of that surface produces 10 kilowatts of continuous cooling power. For context, the central air conditioning unit in a typical American home runs at 3 to 5 tons of cooling capacity, roughly 10 to 17 kilobars. This paint covers a meaningful fraction of that load in a hot climate. In a moderate climate, it could handle the entire cooling load for significant parts of the year. No compressor, no refrigerant, no ductwork, no electricity bill, just a coat of paint and a clear sky. The same principle that makes this paint work, a surface that manages its own temperature by interacting with the energy around it, also works beneath your feet. Every civilization that built in a harsh climate understood that the ground holds a stable temperature year-round. 6 feet below your yard, the earth sits at roughly 50 degree F, no matter what the air is doing above it. That stability is a free heating and cooling resource that has been used for thousands of years and ignored by the modern building industry for the same reasons white roofs were ignored. If this story changed the way you look at the simple solutions hidden in plain sight, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the history and the science that they have tried to bury. Let's build a cooler future together. The next treasure of knowledge will be opened soon.